Hello once again, YouTube. You're watching the 100 Commander Decks Countdown, number 98, Myrkul, Lord of Bones. So Myrkul is from the Commander Legends Forgotten Realms set. He's a 7/5, 7 CMC to cast, 4 a green, a white, and a black. When he's on the battlefield, whenever one of your creatures dies, he exiles it, and then he creates a copy of that creature that is an enchantment and no longer a creature. If your life total is half of your starting total, he gets indestructible. Remember, the coolest part about this is that the copy of the creature that he exiled is no longer a creature, so it does not apply to the legend rule if your creature were to come back onto the battlefield, because they're not the same card anymore. Now, Myrkul isn't an enchantment deck per se, it just becomes an enchantment deck. It's a super creature heavy deck. The goal is to get your creatures to come back onto the battlefield as enchantments, which terrorizes your opponent, because enchantments are harder to kill than creatures. And there's a couple ways to do this. First, board wipes. It does kill Myrkul too, but his trigger still goes off. However, if he's indestructible, then he doesn't die. The second is sack outlets. It gives you card advantage. It's also really useful to counter your opponent's stuff. If they're trying to kill your creature, sacrifice it in response, you get a card out of it, and you still get your enchantment to come out on the battlefield. So this is the land breakdown here. I do want to point out, if you don't have a Serra's Sanctum at home, that's okay. You can supplement it with something else. I just happen to have it in here, and it's a really good card, especially with Enchantment Tribal. The deck is black heavy compared to the other colors, so we have more swamps in the deck than others, but because it's 3 colors, I definitely have to make sure that I have the mana advantage, so I have a lot of non-basic lands in there to produce multiple colors of mana. So these are your utility cards. I also have the ramp in here. Nothing special here. Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, you know, the usual suspects. One card that is actually pretty cool in here is Jaheira, Friend of the Forest. She allows your tokens to tap for green, so you can actually use the enchantments that Myrkul creates, and they're basically forests, so they can add more mana for you and get more stuff out. One card I did want to point out is Martyrdom. It's an old card from Alliances. You don't have to have it in your deck. I just think it's cool. Some of those old cards really need to get used. They shouldn't just sit in a box somewhere. It is useful because your opponent's not going to see it coming, and they probably don't even know what it is. What it does is it takes damage and redirects it from yourself to a creature you control. So if someone's doing like a really big damage spell or a burn spell or something like that that might kill you, Martyrdom's actually kind of useful. It will kill your creature if you have Myrkul out, which will benefit you because your creature will then turn into an enchantment, so it could save you the game sometimes. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to point out, these are your vital cards. These are the ones that you want to get out. So on the right side, we have Limdul, Gisa, Rada Drabic, and Sepulchral Primordial. Those are the guys that are going to bring stuff back from your graveyard or from your opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield into your control. And then above that, we have the board wipes. So one of the cool things about Gisa and Rada Drabic especially is they're going to create creature copies of the stuff that gets exiled by Myrkul. So you're going to have a creature version and an enchantment version of the same creature. And again, because one's a creature and one's an enchantment, the legendary rule isn't going to kill them. On the left, we have the 2 Kaya Planeswalkers and a Threos. Kaya the Geist Hunter is going to be able to double tokens. So if you generate a token enchantment with Myrkul, you can get a copy of it. As long as they're not legendary, you can have both. It will also generate multiple copies if you have, say, Felice out in play. You're going to get a ton of tokens. Threos and Kaya the Inexorable, what they'll do is they're actually going to take stuff from exile and bring it back to the battlefield. So even if Myrkul exiles your creature to create an enchantment copy of it, those 2 cards are actually going to give you your card back. So you can hypothetically continue to cast them and continue to get them on the battlefield. And then Eskis Chariot, you can copy the enchantments that are created by Myrkul, again, as long as they're not legendary. So the next thing on the left here, we have your enchantment token generators, also kind of enchantment tribal. Arcana, Sun's Grace, and Ajani's Chosen are going to create enchantment creatures, which will trigger cards like Doomwake Giant and Grim Guardian. Doomwake Giant is useful because Myrkul's biggest weakness is decks that are fast and swing wide with lots of creatures. Doomwake Giant handles that. There's 2 Extort cards in here because it's a constant life gain source. It's something that you might need in some cases. In the middle here, we have some creatures that can become very powerful enchantments if they stay on the battlefield. Wrath the Assassin is going to be able to get rid of your opponent's creatures. Tormund is going to create more tokens when your creatures leave the graveyard. They will die first, and then Myrkul exiles them. Weaver of Harmony is going to copy activated or triggered abilities from enchantments. So if you have, say, Wrath the Assassin out as an enchantment, you can copy its ability with Weaver of Harmony, which is amazing. Battle Mammoth is for card draw, something that you're going to need in this deck. Kambal, again, is similar to the Extort cards in Grim Guardian. It's going to give you a constant life gain source, which is really useful, something that you're going to need. And then on the right, these are your Graveyard Resurrector cards, which we mentioned earlier a little bit. Also a little bit more token generation with Ogre, Slumlord, and Sheoldred. Really useful card. Kind of slow, but if it's an enchantment, they're still going to have to sacrifice creatures, and potentially you can get them onto the battlefield under your control. So this is some of the board wipes, the Planeswalkers, some of your sack outlets with Witch's Cauldron and Greater Good. Really useful for card draw, something you're going to need. Meathook Massacre, probably one of the best board wipes in the game right now. Really useful to have out there because you have a lot of stuff going into your graveyard. And this is some of your token generators. Felice is going to make spirits for every token that you make each turn. Ellen Harbreeze is really good for you to cycle through your deck and get the cards that you need. Benny Brax, card draw again. You've got Fiend Artisan, which is great to get cards out of the deck that you need. Gary, obviously, is useful in any deck that has black. Dreadhound, very good for constant damage source. And Crypt Rats, awesome card. It will kill your opponent's stuff, but it's also going to come back as an enchantment. Basically, it's going to be a pestilence that never goes away. So that's deck number 98, Myrkul. As always, if you have any comments or questions, please leave me a comment in the comments section below. Also, like and subscribe to my videos. It helps me make more videos. I love doing these, and I can't wait for number 97.